Have you noticed how in like general humanity, we become parodies of ourselves? So like back in the 80s and 90s, we had these things, women, you had these things called mom jeans. You remember these mom jeans? Mom jeans are pretty incredible. So good that SNL then made this commercial that is called Mom Jeans that is excellent. And as they're showing off their mom jeans, there's this line in it that absolutely kills me. It's, I'm not a woman anymore, I'm a mom. Isn't that great? I'm not, as a non-mother, I would say I don't know what that feeling is like, but it sounds pretty deflating at the same time, right? And so these things get parodied, we make fun of them, all that jazz. And then, in 2024, the three most popular artists, streaming-wise, ticket sales, all that stuff, Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish, and Sabrina Carpenter, who I think is like the child of the Carpenters or something like that. Do you notice anything about what they're wearing? Yeah, they're wearing mom jeans. In fact, if you go online right now and make a click and search for mom jeans, guess what you're gonna find? You are going to find a whole lot of ways that people are explaining how you can unironically wear and rock these mom jeans, because all of a sudden they're cool, because we have become a parody of ourselves here, all right? That's what fashion does. There's this ebb and a flow. It goes out for a while, then it comes back, and then it goes back out for a while, and then it comes back. And we see this stuff happen, which is, fun and easy to poke fun at. But the reality is that every single one of us, we're influenced by the things around us. So if this is what everybody is wearing, if this is the stuff that everybody's doing, generally speaking, you can guess what the people like in the church are going to look like, because we're all shaped, we're all formed by the different things that we experience. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a fact to it. Sometimes it's a slow drip like fashion. Sometimes we have this idea that actually it's kind of top down. You're forced, you're coerced to act or behave or dress a particular way. Any Star Trek fans in the house? Raise your hand nice and high. Keep it up. Okay, security, we need the following. Keep it up, please. Escorted out, nerds, you self-identified. Okay, I know the Borg. Anybody know about the Borg? Okay, you know about the Borg? These guys, they have this phrase, resistance is futile. If you've ever heard that phrase, even if you're not a Star Trek fan, that came from the Borg. That is a Star Trek saying. The Borg, what they do is they take anybody that they capture, or a home planet that they invade, and they assimilate them. And they strip everybody of their individuality, and they reprogram them with this hive mind that you are just a part of the Borg, and you can try to resist, it's just not gonna work out well for you. So I remember when I was a kid, seeing the cliffhanger at the end of Star Trek: The Next Generation, when the very man himself, Jean-Luc Picard, was assimilated, and he became part of the Borg. And this is in like April of 1990 or something like that. And we had to wait to find out what happened until not May. Oh, not June, not July, not August, but like late September to find out what happens to Picard. Now this is how the Borg functions, right? They come in, instead of like the fashion that like you get some influencers that change it around the edges, they come in and they just straight up tell you what to do, and you can't help it, you get reprogrammed or something like that. When you're watching a show, TV show, movie or something, and somebody has some information in their head, we have this kind of cartoonish idea that we can torture that person enough and then we will extract that information from them, because that's how things work. That's how we can get people to change. You don't want to let me know you don't want to give up that information. I will make you give up that information. And we know that we have all these ideas about how individuals work, about how society works, all of this stuff. And at the end of it, with all of this, we know that there's a subtle and different way that's unlike any of those, but far more nefarious than any of that. We're in this series called Creative Minority, and the whole point of this series is going through the book of Daniel and seeing, what does Daniel have to say? What does this have to do with us today? And as we talked about last week, I kicked it off. We got through a whole 2 verses of the book of Daniel. Somebody's like, you barely even touched it. And I'm like, I know, don't worry. It's a series. We'll keep going, all right? But we started off by kind of setting it up last week. You have Babylon, which is further south than Israel. Babylon invades Israel and kills tens of thousands of people. They take tens of thousands more on into exile. They take them back to use them in their military, in their administration, however they want to use them. These exiles now live in Babylon, and they will be used to whatever the ends are of the Babylonians. And so the story we're going to read today takes place over about 3 years from beginning to end. And we saw last week how Jeremiah writes to the exiles in Babylon because they're curious. They're like, do we fight the Babylonians? Do we resist? Or do we assimilate? Do we just become like all the other Babylonians? And Jeremiah's response is, appropriately, neither. He says, build houses, plant gardens, get married, have kids, do all of those things. But whatever you don't do, what he specifically doesn't say is give up and become like them. Quite the opposite, in fact. Babylon, however, has a tool that is more effective than their military. Their tool is, we're going to see how it gets put to use right here in verse 3 of Daniel chapter 1. Then, so they're all taken out of exile or into exile. The king, Nebuchadnezzar, ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility. Young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, qualified to serve in the king's palace. Only the best get there. He was to teach these young men, these exiles, the language and literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that, they were to enter the king's service. Among those who were chosen were some from Judah. That's Israel. That's the region in Israel. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belshazzar. To Hananiah, Shadrach. To Mishael, Meshach. And to Azariah, Abednego. Babylon has a powerful military. But the thing that made them exceptional compared to every other nation wasn't their military, it was their culture. It was their ability to bring people in who have their own language, who have their own cultural patterns, who have their own religions even, and strip them down from all of it and to reclothe them now and rebrand them now as good Babylonians. That's exactly what's going to happen. You even see Daniel is given a new name. And that's not very subtle, is it? Like, who gives you your name? Mom, dad, right? Your parents give you your name. So when you get a new name, when they say, oh, Daniel, that's nice. You know, you're in Babylon now, so I want you to have something that sounds a little bit more Babylonian, just because it's for your own good. It's for your own comfort here. So we're going to call you Belshazzar instead. And you hear that, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not Daniel anymore. I'm not whatever your name may be. And you think, okay, that's not very subtle. That's just right up front. You're changing the name. But they do it with the clothes too. So whatever Israel's fashion wasn't the same as Babylon. And so now they're wearing Babylonian clothes. And they're probably a little bit silkier, a little bit nicer. There's a comfort that comes from some of these upgrades. And they get new meals because the agriculture in Babylon is different than the agriculture in Israel. So what they don't get is the same stuff that grandma made that they loved. They just get something new. And all along the way, everything feels so foreign, but it also just kind of feels so good that why why fight it? Like, it seems like this is working out pretty well for us. This is what Babylon did. Through cultural immersion, they were able to take the very things that people just assumed about themselves and reprogram them, subtly retrain them over time. And it didn't matter how they dressed, how they ate, what God they worshiped. They were extremely successful at this. So that means the biggest challenge that the exiles face, the biggest challenge when people are sent out to Babylon is not that they'll be unsafe. It's actually that they'll get so comfortable that they'll become complacent. And they'll get so confused about who they are and who they were before they went into exile that they just kind of say, you know what, it feels nicer to fit in. The biggest risk that they could have is that they forget that they are a chosen group of people who are blessed for a purpose. That's the risk they ran. That's what Babylon is trying to do. They're trying to redefine the exiles. But, verse 8, Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. Is it because food is bad? No. Is it because wine is bad? No. The food and wine in and of itself is not the problem here, right? Yet this is where he draws the line. He will not defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself in this way. So he says, please test your servants for 10 days. Test your servants. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So the official agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. Now, of all the things Daniel could have drawn the line in the sand at, he chose food. Why? Well, food is, they're eating from the king's table. And your food, quite simply, is the thing that sustains you through life. Like you needed something to eat either last night or this morning or at some point soon, you're gonna have to eat something, right? It's how you have energy. And so for Daniel, he looks at this and he says, I understand what the king is providing. I want you guys to understand that what will sustain me and what will sustain my friends here will not be the king's provision. It's going to be a different kind of provision. Royal official freaks out. He's like, I don't know, man, that doesn't sound like a good deal. You're going to get me in trouble. He says, trust me on this. Test it out. David was given food and he finds a new thing to do. He renounces the food. He says, no, thank you. I don't need that. He preserves his identity in doing so. He says that I am not just going to be like everybody else. Here's who I am. Here's where I draw the line. And that identity is so important. Like you think about when you take your kid and you drop them off at college. I have not been there yet, but I'm probably not far from it. Assuming that colleges exist in 5 years or so, that'll happen. And when I get there, when I get to that point of dropping the kid off, there's this sense of like, what's going to happen, right? Like as a parent, you're letting go of control, you're releasing, there you go. And that's where you have to kind of trust everything you've done leading up to that you have driven home the identity of that kid. Hey, we are compassionate people, we are caring, we are generous, we are all of these things, okay? So now that I release you, it is now your turn to go and kind of own that for yourself. The worst thing that could happen to your kid in a situation like that isn't that a professor does not like your kid. And it's not that, I have a class here and I have a class there and I'm not sure exactly how to get to that building from this one, or your kid's gonna figure that stuff out. The worst thing that could happen is that Christmas break comes around and your kid comes home and they walk in and they are cynical and they are bitter and they are angry and just the exact opposite of the kid that you dropped off at the college. It'd be sad because you know their identity. It's like they forgot who they were in the process. You know they're going to have life experiences, but you don't want them to forget who they are amidst the life experiences, because the identity does not change no matter where you are. That's the challenge that every single one of us face. Daniel says, I am not for sale. So you can do all these things. I can play with your name changes. I can do that. But here's where I draw the line. I draw it at food, because Babylon will not have the final say in my life. Scottsdale is not Babylon. We do not live in Babylon. However, there are things around us that we assume, things that we see, things that we experience that do threaten to train us and reprogram us and have us think in particular ways. Things that you might not even think about. Like, for example, I'm from Indiana, rural Indiana. We were just back there last month. I showed my kids Indiana, which is synonymous with saying, I showed my kids what corn looks like. That is corn. That is corn. That's beans. That is corn, corn, corn. That's basically Indiana in a nutshell. But we get to this little Airbnb on a lake that we're staying at, and I'm sitting on the back porch, and my kids are there, and I say, hey guys, see that house right there? Yeah. Notice anything about it? No. You can see their back porch. Like, it's just right in front of us. It's right there. Like, oh, okay. There's no fence. There's no cinder block, 8-foot tall fence. Oh, yeah. In fact, in Indiana, fences are for livestock. They are not for people. I'm going to guess when you moved into your house in Phoenix, Scottsdale, or PV, that you didn't build a cinder block wall around your house because it was already built for you, right? Because that is just an assumption that we have here. And I'm not saying that that's so evil or anything, but here's what I do want to ask. You know that there's like this sense of community that rural Indiana has. I get that. That's fine. It's quaint. It's its own thing. What does it do to a neighborhood when everybody's favorite place to hang out is in their castled off backyard? What does that do to a sense of camaraderie, of intimacy, of togetherness, of knowing something about one another? Like, that makes it pretty hard, doesn't it? And we think that is literal infrastructure that we're known for. This is just what we do because it's what somebody decided 60 years ago should be the norm, and that's what happens. Like, what happens when your preferred place to hang out is the backyard, even though you know that the neighborhood hangs out, or all the happening is in the front yard? What does that say about our ability to connect? Tells me that we're one of those places where what happens in my home is my own business. So you do you. Which is fantastic advice when you're standing in line at Starbucks getting ready to order your drink. Yeah, you do you. It's also a terrible way of living your life. But we know implicitly, especially in Phoenix, especially in Scottsdale, we know that there's this kind of thing of, well, that's just them. You do you. Ignore other people. Don't pay attention. And in some cases, you might even get to that point of saying, you shouldn't care so much about the people around you. Let them live their own life. How about the idea of comfort and convenience? Let's loop those together. We love comfort. Who doesn't like air conditioning? It's 110 degrees outside, and you can sit inside, and you might even need to bring a little jacket because things get chilly sometimes. That's pretty nice. I'm not going to hate on that, but at the same time, we get this idea that every place that we need to go has to have a certain level of comfort. Or if I have to actually leave my house to purchase something, I am somehow like being persecuted. You know, so it's like 8:30 and I'm yawning on the couch, but there's something I gotta have. It's so easy for me to pull up my phone, boopity boop, go to bed, wake up, and it's on my front doorstep. That's pretty convenient, right? When we live our lives in that kind of a way, we can start expecting that to happen. So tell me, The greatest person that you know, like you think of a friend, a mentor, maybe an uncle, a parent, somebody that you're like, man, this person is like just one of the models of my life. Would you say that their life is characterized by comfort and convenience? Or is the reason why somebody is great not because they just skated through life, but because they faced real adversity? Our culture tells us repeatedly to just seek out comfort, seek out comfort. You have to, if you're experiencing pain, you must run from that. What if it's the opposite there? Now, I can make a list all day, and I'm sure you guys could help me add to it a really long list of all of the things that we deal with here in Scottsdale. I'm just going to leave those two with us for now. But what God does to Daniel, as Daniel is starting to experience some of that comfort and convenience, as Daniel is beginning to see how things around him are beginning to get, let's say, reprogrammed, we see Daniel drawing the line, knowing that God says, yes, live here, seek the good of this city, do what you can for these people, plant your gardens, build your houses, have your families. Yes, here, but also don't forget who you are. Do all of these things, live in your house, thrive and flourish, because when you flourish, chances are the city's gonna flourish. That's a good thing, but don't forget who you are. It's in that forgetting of who you are that your heart begins to change. It's so tempting to build up these castles, not just around our houses, but our hearts. And God says repeatedly, hey, I get it. You got cinder block walls around your house. That's fine. Your backyard is not just for you. I get it. You have all of these opportunities before. The things that you have, the comfort and convenience, is not so that you can just feel good. Take it. It's a blessing. It's a good thing. That's not just for you, though, at the end of the day. That's so you can go and get uncomfortable with the people that are walking through the hardest points of life. It's always given with a purpose. Blessings are always given with a purpose. So Daniel has resolve. He makes this resolution, and he does this not just one time. He does it for over 70 years, as we see as we go through this whole story. But the question that you have to ask is, what is it that you want to be known for? What is it you want to be known for? Like, who are you? Who is Eric? Who is Kelsey? Who is anybody? Who are you? And what do you want people to say about, how would they describe you? Would they say, oh yeah, they're just like everybody else around? Would they say, yeah, they kind of look like us, they kind of talk like us, they got some things. Like, they're kind of curious about the way that it's not this, it's very similar to being a good Scottsdale person, but it's different. It's like with a twist. And that if they looked even closer, they might even say, hey, yeah, it actually, that little twist that they do, I think we all might be better off if we were all a little bit more like Chad. What do you want people to say about you? For parents in the room, what kind of values do you want to drive home to your kids? What do you say, these are non-negotiables, this is who we are, so that when you get to that point of sending them off, you know who they are, and they know who they are. And are you being intentional in that, or is this just something that you say, okay, this is nice, but, I'm just gonna hope that they catch it by osmosis. They'll catch some stuff, probably not the lessons you want them to learn. Daniel made the commitment to live a life that was similar to, but not identical with Babylon. He was tested for 10 days. Here's how it went. At the end of the 10 days, Daniel and his friends, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wine, and they were to drink, and gave them vegetables instead. Cucumbers, carrots. Is your soul leaving your body right now too? Okay, thank you. And Daniel doesn't make a flashy show of this. He doesn't say, not for me. No, he just simply says, no thanks. Here's who I am. This is what I'm gonna do. And that's how we are given that clue of how do we walk in the way of Jesus? Is it by being flashy and saying, oh, I can't, I'm a Christian? Or is it just by saying, hey, yeah, I get that, that's fine. I know who I am, and that's not it. Not in a judgmental way either. Just simply saying, I know who I am. Because Babylon knows all it has to do is begin to confuse the exiles. Once it can confuse and put those cracks in, it can start to pour in all the other stuff. So at some point, Daniel has to know exactly where he draws the line. And that's what he does. Because like a boat that has an anchor that can slip and slip and slip, you don't realize it at first, but if you're there, you start moving and you realize after a while you've drifted a long way. And at some point you have to say, okay, that didn't work, we need to try it again. We need to do something different because this isn't working for us. So at some point you have to resolve. And that's the first of two R words that I want to drive home for us. The first thing that we have to do is we have to renounce. We have to renounce things that go on in life. I just gave two things as examples of little areas of comfort. Renouncing your cinder block wall does not mean that you need to go get a mallet and start taking it down. But what you can do is you can renounce what that means, right? You can say, hey, no. This space is not just for me. This is for my people, my community, my neighbors. I'm not going to be a stranger for the people around me. You renounce that. You renounce that comfort and convenience. And listen to me when I say this, because this is really important, all right? When you renounce, you say, I am done, I drew the line, I'm finished. And for like the next 5 or 10 minutes, you're gonna do really good, okay? But then, life comes at you. And it gets a lot more difficult down the road. You realize, I've renounced several times, but I don't know how well it's working. When it is just you trying to navigate life, that's how it's gonna go. I don't know what your experience is. Maybe I'm the outlier here, but that's how it works for me too. If I have big changes, lines in the sand that I draw down, man, if it's just me, it's not gonna work out well. This is why we need each other. This is why Eric gets up and says what he says about the men's group, because he's seen that as much as he might want to experience change and transformation in his own life, the thing that actually worked is when he said to a group of people that he loves and trusts, say, hey, I'm drawing this line in the sand and I need you guys to help me. That's why we do women's groups. That's why we do men's groups. That's why we do all the things from Momco, Mickey. Excellent kickoff this week. Like, we have so many things happening. This is why people are what's important. You can like the service. You can like the music. You can like the sermon, all that stuff. That's fine. It just doesn't matter until you have people that you can renounce alongside, okay? So you start by getting a community of renunciation. You might even call that a monastic community. Oh, that's so good. A little nerdy. Okay, I'll take that. But we renounce together, okay? Because it's not just about you, it's about us. Because if you try to carry that on your own, you're just not going to get very far. Trust me. So you start with renounce, and then you build the resolve. Because it's no longer just you making a resolution by yourself on December 31st that you know by January 2nd will have fully passed. You're actually resolving and saying, okay, I'm thinking of the future here and I'm gonna be invested in it. So for me at my age and stage, I think, what do I want people to say about me when I'm 80? When I'm 80 years old, this fabled old age, right? Some of you in the room, you're like, 80 years old, that was 20 years ago for me. Grim Reaper knocked on the door with the scythe, told him to go away. He hasn't come back since. He must have forgotten about me. Okay, we got a few of you guys. We love you guys. What do you want people to say about you down the road? Maybe you're a teenager and you hear this, you're like, 80 years old sounds like forever from now, which it kind of is. Okay, how about 28? How about when you're 28 years old? That's not that far. Trust me, it's way in my past now. But for you, that might not be that far. What do you want people to say about you then? That you, oh yeah, just like everybody else, I made the same mistakes as everybody else, went to the same things, just talked the same way, same regrets, all that stuff. Or do you want a different story? One that says, hey, no, I knew where to draw the line, and I'm not going back. And I had people, friends, family that love me and care for me and surrounded me. And because of them, I'm able to be here today healthier and better and ready. What kind of story do you want to tell? You have to have that resolve. You have to know where to draw the line. And that's not just true of how you live in your house. That's true of who you date. That's true of how you approach money. It's true of how you approach friendships and relationships and navigating issues. It's true for all of it. And if you renounce the right things, you resolve to live in a particular way. Paul talks about it like it's like offering your body as a living sacrifice where the old you has gone, but the new you is there. Jesus talks about it. It's like being born again, like you're not just you. There's like a new you, a new birth there. And the life you live now is not just about whatever you can achieve today. Rather, it's what God can do in and through you. So when we renounce and we resolve, here's what happens. This is what happens to Daniel. These 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds because God honors faithfulness. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them into service, so we just jumped 3 years into the future, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them and found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service. In every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters of the whole kingdom. Things are looking good for Jeremiah, or for Daniel. Maybe Jeremiah was onto something when he said that though, right? Like, hey, plant those gardens, build those houses, live your life. And know who you are. Know where to draw that line because God honors faithfulness. So there's no way that it goes downhill from here, right? There's no way that there's a fiery furnace of some sort or a lion's den where perhaps they might even be tested further. Next week, we're going to build on the story and we're going to see exactly how we go from here to there, both in the story of Daniel and then what that means in our lives. Would you pray with me? Father, would you show us today as we trust in your Spirit? Lord, we trust that as a community, not just in my own life, but in every heart and mind here on this campus today, Lord, that you are at work and you're prodding us with things in our hearts and our lives that we need to renounce. Lord, things from yesterday, things from this morning. Lord, we're trusting your Holy Spirit will even do that on into this week. Lord, that you are drawing us nearer to you by showing us where we need to draw the line. Would you reveal that to us today? And Lord, would you give us the resolve not just to come to some nice little decision right here at this moment, at this point in time, but Lord, would you give us the resolve to go get engaged in community where we can work this out together? Lord, so that we might not just become more like Scottsdale, discipled by the latest trends and fads, but Lord, we could be discipled by you. That we could be characterized by our faithfulness to you, that we could be rewarded by you. Lord, would you teach us in this moment? Would you open up our hearts and help us to connect in that kind of way? We thank you for the work of your Spirit in each of our lives, and we ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.